Welcome, my friends. You are on Mav's Coffee Clarity with Denise DiGregoli. Every week we're spilling the beans. It's a show designed to help you move forward in work, love, and life. And who doesn't need that? If you just found me, welcome. And if you're a regular listener, welcome back. You know this is where I interview fascinating people from all walks of life, known to unknown, entrepreneurs, creatives, performers, and athletes, forward-thinking people. It's life hacks, business intel, fresh ideas to help you move forward. Unedited and authentic. Why? Because we got a lot to do. 27 minutes, we're out of here, baby. All right. Today is no different, my friends. Wow. I'm up in the Berkshires today. And you know me, I love serendipitous events. So I was leaving another taping, and I stopped by my husband's favorite place, SoCo Creamery, to get him a Valentine's treat. And you know, Mav, I love to talk. So I met this interesting gentleman and I asked the question, who puts these fabulous flavors together? And it happened to be the owner, ERIK BRUUN, with us today. Welcome to the pod, ERIK.
Thanks very much. I feel honored that you would describe me as fascinating based on our 10-minute conversation, but I'll do my best.
I knew. Yeah. And for those of you that don't know where the Berkshires is, it's Western Mass. It's where I grew up, and I spend much of my creative time here. So I'm so thankful you could join us today. SoCo Creamery. Before we dig into the business, I know you had quite a career in journalism. So I want the audience to understand a little bit about you and how you migrated into this fascinating, delicious brand, which has now got distribution even down into Fairfield. I've noticed it.
Yeah.
Where we also live.
Well, my career in journalism was not that fantastic, but I was a reporter for the Berkshire Eagle. In fact, you mentioned that you're originally from West Stockbridge. That was part of my beat, my first beat for the Berkshire Eagle. Went to the selectmen's meetings and
oh, that must have been interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I was from New York City, and so the whole concept of town meeting government was really eye-opening and inspiring at the outset, because in New York City, you know, there's mayors and aldermen or councilors or whatever, and the idea of the self-governing element of a small town meeting thing was really interesting to me. And then over the course of several years, it became a lot less interesting.
I can hypothesize in my mind why.
Yes, you can. And so I was a reporter for the Eagle for 5 years, and I started a weekly newspaper with some friends, and we eventually sold that. And I ended up in quite arbitrarily in doing international finance, emerging market bonds through a family element, and that allowed me to stay in the Berkshires and do really interesting work around the world. I mean, I was literally going to South America very frequently, and that sort of just ended up sort of petering out. And I was kind of looking for something to do, and some people I knew had gotten involved with SoCo, and they had hired someone to be the CEO, and that didn't work out, and they needed someone to do it for a short term. And I was
this is your short-term gig?
Yes, it was my short-term gig. It was going to be like 3 to 6 months, and this was 8 years ago, and my second son had just gone off to college, and I had decided I wanted to spend more time with my family, and he was now gone. And so I was offered to do this, and it seemed like a really interesting thing. And at the time, I had a 10-year-old daughter, and there's no better way to get in the, good graces of a 10-year-old child than to own the local ice cream place. So I did it as a short-term thing, and it became a long-term thing. And now...
Did you always fashion yourself as an entrepreneur?
No, not really. Although I've done a lot of entrepreneurial things, mainly in the nonprofit sector. Was very involved in starting what's become a very successful youth development organization, the Railroad Street Youth Project, and things like that.
What
And
does the Railroad Street Youth Project do?
its mission is to support youth-inspired projects that build self-worth, intergenerational communication, and respect. And it started in Great Barrington almost 25 years ago, when there was a series of deaths associated with overdoses, alcohol-related car accidents, and suicides. And since you grew up around here, I mean,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so there happened to be a sequence of about a dozen deaths over like 2 or 3 years, and a couple of young people, one in particular, just decided something should be done and came up with this idea. And she started off, the Barrington Stage Company did a play, and they raised some money around it, like $2,000. And the director of Barrington Stage, Julian Boyd, gave her name was Amanda Root, gave her $2,000 and said, you should do something next.
I wonder if Amanda Root was Bab Root's daughter, my old art teacher.
That's
fascinating.
Maybe granddaughter?
Maybe
not the daughter.
Yeah.
Did she have, her father's name was I can't remember. It was a dysfunctional family for her.
That's quite a bit, though. When you say, like, everyone lately just lays out their dysfunctionality like it's a buffet for holiday meals. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it used to be a sacrosanct topic. You didn't talk about it.
Right.
But,
you didn't joke about it either.
No, you didn't either. And I think I have a vague recollection that she did talk about someone who was a teacher in her family.
Well, Babs Root, if that's the one, and I'll have to find her, was very instrumental of how I got into the arts.
Is that right?
Yeah, for sure.
So how did you get into the arts?
So I grew up now you're interviewing me, which is kind of cool too. I grew up in West Stockbridge and artistic family, immigrant Italian family. So we all sewed and crocheted and repurposed and gardened and I worked in my grandmother's business, which was in West Stockbridge at the time. She had taken it over after my grandfather died. It was an automotive services gas station. So I went to work with her when I was 9 and spent a lot of creative time with her. And used to go to the Goodwill and Salvation Army and donations and take clothes apart and sew them back together. And I was a line illustrator. We had great art teachers here, Babs Root, the Frenches, Prim and John French. I went through the Monument School system.
2 small F's.
2 small F's, Crispina French.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, we're giving everyone a shout out today. Yeah. Anyway, so
You should interview Crispina.
She has been on my prior show. She needs to come on this show for sure.
Yeah.
Very creative woman. Well, there's so much creativity here. I mean, this is the thing. There's like so many people to talk to explore like new horizons in their life. So I went to FIT. My husband went to School of Visual Arts. We met up much later in life, and we have a thriving art restoration business for oil paintings and sculpture. And it's a long story as to how I became Mav, but that's a name that the kids assigned me, Ava's friends. And
when you say the kids, who are the kids?
Middle school kids that, here's the truth. And I was going to make this a separate episode. They were sitting in the kitchen one day in our house in Fairfield, and they were lamenting because some girl was calling Ava ugly over her unibrow. You know,
Ava's your daughter.
Yeah, Ava's our 21-year-old daughter. This is, let's say she's 10, 11. And we weren't into dyeing and plucking and all that kind of crazy stuff, especially back then. I don't think many Berkshire girls do that, actually. We're more prone to Birkenstocks. But I got kicked out of here because I wore the gold sparkly ones. Anyway, so Abe's friends were lamenting about this, and I was like, wait a minute, our unibrow is our superpower. I mean, what woman have you not seen, like, dictate to her family, be quiet, move it, etc., with her eyebrows?
Right.
So I said, Ave, no, this is like not happening. You tell that girl that your mother said that's our superpower, and when she gets to be my age, these friggers are going to fall off. We're going to have to tattoo them back on. So hold the phone. And one of her friends turned around and said, Ava, oh my God, your mother is a savage. I said, you bet your hiney I am. I don't like bullies at all. So it became Mom, Savage, Mavage, Maverick. Now it's Mav. And so, like, in my house, they're like, well, what would Mav think of that? And that's how it became my stage name.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
back.
I'm sorry. Can I
No,
ask
one
another
more.
question?
Okay, you've got another question. Excellent.
I got a question for you.
I love it.
So your mom ran the former auto shop?
Not my mom. My grandmother, Armida Dianello, ran the Troy's Garage.
Oh, so your grandmother did, and you helped. Now, that's a very unusual thing, isn't it?
Well, I will tell you.
A grandmother and a granddaughter in that setting, that's usually quite male.
Quite male. Yes. Well, the interesting thing about her, too, was she only went to the 8th grade because her mom was sick with cancer. And so she was the last of 8. So she stood home to take care of her mom. Oh, wow. So the thing I'm most proud of with my grandmother, I love both of my grandmothers, but that grandmother taught me so much about entrepreneurship, growth mindset, let it go, move forward. And she would say, and this is why I do the work I do today, you cannot be a success unless you help someone else be a success. Mm. So start with one person at a time and leave the world a better place. And she was the reason when Eleanor Freed pulled into the gas station that I said, oh, my God, I want to go to FIT, Graham. And she said, don't waste our resources. And she was very much, before there was the real term, a very quiet feminist in her own way. She had to. Her husband dropped dead at 54, and she was left holding the bag. And, my uncles run the business now. But, yeah, I spent a tremendous...
Uncle, it's Troy's?
Right.
We got a car through there.
Okay, so funny. When I brought my husband, Troy, home to meet everyone, he's like, you never told me your grandmother's business was Troy's Garage. Well, that's because they bought it from a man in 1962 named Mr. Troy.
Okay.
So I never put the 2 and 2 together because my husband is Troy Amuso. But yeah, so I tell the story of this to my daughter all the time. I used to make $1 an hour pumping gas. And my mother said, if you want those fancy Jordache jeans down at, what was that store on Main Street? Not Bill's, Jeans, Jack's, I don't know. Jack's, right, Jack's. If you want the Jordache jeans that are $28, you have to figure it out. I'm only giving you $10. And I remember working the 18 hours to go down and get the Jordache jeans. So that's the kind of work ethic we come from. That's where our creativity comes from. Yeah. And the cool thing about my grandmother was, even though she did not understand the arts, she was in full support of the career. She was like, go do you. And that's what I tell Abe. Go do you.
Yeah. Can I make a note for listeners to know that they wouldn't know because they can't see you?
Yes.
But looked like a tear was welding.
I miss her dearly.
Your grandmother.
I miss her. I miss her. I talk to her every day, one way or another, but I miss her dearly. And a lot of the work I've done in my book, The Daily Drive, An Agenda for Your Mind, Body, Spirit, and Lifestyle, she used to write stuff down every day. Mm-hmm. So the book is an active, reflective writing tool. So now we've gone way off the track, but it's cool that you want to know, and I guess that's the reporter in you coming out.
I like to think it's just, I'm interested.
And interested, yeah. So it's like coffee with a friend, my friends. You never know what's going to happen. You're kind of eavesdropping in on this conversation with Erik and I.
So I can bring it back to Soko if you'd like.
Yes, please.
So with Troy's, which still is around, right? Or it was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's still around.
So Soko needed to get a car, and someone within the company reached out to them about it, and the owner, I don't know if you know the owner now.
Oh yeah, they're the same. They're my uncles.
They're your uncles.
And actually my
was there a tragedy in their life? Because I think, if I remember right, they was there a fire or something like that? Because what happened was they said, you guys are from Soko, we'll give you a discount, because when there was some event and you guys gave us, I just give away gift cards all the time and ice cream all the time.
Oh, no, there was a fire in my cousin's house, yes. And they did a big fundraiser at Butternut. You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess we provided ice cream for free to the fundraiser.
Maybe, yeah.
And, or something. I don't remember, but we did something. It's a community, it's a store in a community that it's a reflection of, ice cream is not about, people go into ice cream stores for emotional reasons, not for dietary.
For sure.
Yeah. And so...
Hands down.
And we said yes to whatever they asked. And they they were so grateful that he gave it to us at cost. So whatever he had bought the car for, he sold it forward.
So I'm speculating. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm speculating that was probably my Uncle John. That's my mother's brother who handles all the car sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So fun fact there, we've always been, in pre-owned cars since I was a little kid. And you'll ask some of my high school buddies that are school teachers at the high school now. We used to always have the cream of the crop off the lot. My grandmother would always allow me to drive whatever. Well, now the rules have changed, so you can't do that anymore. But I was able to drive like some of the cool for sale cars to high school. And my friends always tell you about the pink Cadillac. That was like this giant boat that I would drive to high school and load all of my girlfriends in. And I'd say to my Gram, "Oh, no, it was just me, Gram, honestly." So, so many great memories. And that's the beauty of being back here. We had it on our list since we got married to have a little tiny shanty in the Berkshires. And our daughter was on the ski team here. She skied for Butternut and Catamount very successfully. And but then she was at UMass, so we're like, okay, that's off the list. We're not going to do that anymore. And then literally, this location fell out of the sky, literally. So I'm thankful to be back here because I meet fascinating people like you that are rich with history and creativity. And we do hardcore business in South County, right? Everyone is just a little ratcheted up there. I don't know what it is. If it's too many people, too many wires, 5G's blowing up our brain. I don't know. Having been educated in the city and lived there for many years, but I come here and I find like people are, and hopefully this will stay this way, people are easy to talk to. Mm-hmm. People are easy to just be around, foregoing like being in too many selectmen meetings for too many years and interviewing the same old whatever complaints. But that's what I love about it, because I love to see people creative and succeed and transition and pivot and find like weird silver linings out of their fiascos.
Yeah. I mean, I would speculate on that the reason is not because the people are different. It's that the circumstances are different. I mean, when you live in the city, everything is a hassle. There's a lot of noise. Parking takes forever. You've got all these things you have to worry about. And if you're not parking, you got to use the subway or the bus and everything. And up here, generally speaking, you've got a little more time.
Yeah. A little more space between your thoughts.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I suspect, you have a very outgoing personality. And it's sort of an invitation to open the door, and people are more inclined to open that door.
Ah, well, thank you for saying that. Well, again, going back to my little visit with you, I don't eat ice cream because I've always had like very sensitive teeth to cold. Mm-hmm. Of course, Troy is an avid ice cream eater. And the thing about him is he's like a stick figure. I'm like, dude, would you gain a pound? Because I'm just going to look at that apple crisp and it's going right where you know where. So it was so fun when you said, yes, you'd come on. So I want to talk about a lot of my clients that I work with need help in branding, communication, stage presence, how to communicate. So how does someone like you that's pivoting, get to SoCo and make it beyond an ice cream store? I mean, you got a big brand there. You're a very unassuming gentleman, but you've got a pretty big brand. So give us the details on that.
Let's see. I would say that it was really important to stick with the quality of the ice cream. That there are ways to take shortcuts, as with anything, in making of ice cream. And SoCo's always had a sort of a all natural kind of quality to it. And there are, with ice cream, the quality of the ice cream is three different factors, right? There's the amount of butterfat. The more butterfat, the better in terms of the texture. It doesn't sound great because, butterfat has a connotation.
No, I love butterfat.
Yeah, and so
butterfat makes brains. Even the pediatrician said that.
Yeah,
yeah.
And so
that's why I have so many brains. Just letting you know.
The amount of air in the ice cream. The more air, the lower the quality. So, like if you go and you pick up one of the cheaper ice creams in the
No names will be mentioned.
Yeah, I know.
We can't
I
say.
was conscious of that as I said that.
I was just teasing
But
you.
if you get one of the cheaper brands and you pick it up, you'll notice that it's quite light, and that's because there's more air. Air is obviously a cheaper product than the ingredients that go into the ice cream.
Like hot air. If you're full of hot air, we know you're cheap, right?
Yeah. Well, it is cold air, but and then just the quality of the ingredients, the quality of the ice cream mix, the quality of the the Coke, the chocolate, or the raspberries, or whatever, and there's a lot of artificial product that goes into those less expensive ice creams. So, for example, vanilla. Vanilla is an orchid, and it's a very expensive product in its natural form.
Right.
And 98% of the vanilla that's out in the world is artificial vanilla, and it's a derivative of petroleum.
Ew.
Yeah, and
That's like Vaseline.
well, maybe I don't know.
Vaseline is petroleum.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And it's obviously a more benign thing to eat than Vaseline, but if you don't necessarily know it unless you taste it next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So made a commitment, and there are a lot of shortcuts you can take in the making of ice cream. You pump up the amount of air. You get
These are super
butter.
life hacks, my friends. We're really on the inside now.
Yeah. And the amount of butter fat, the more butter fat, the more expensive the ice cream is, and the you can get artificial flavoring like corn syrup for.
I read that you guys make all your like brownies and all.
Yeah, we make our own brownies. That's the one thing that really stands out. Makes us stand out from most of what you see is we will make our own brownies, we'll make our own cookie dough, we make our own fudge. The only one thing we don't do is the chocolate sandwich cookies, but we get those. They're from a high quality producer, organic chocolate sandwich cookies. So they for shorthand, it's like Oreos. But it's all natural ingredients. And so a commitment to that, and then a commitment to trying to make it fun as possible. So, we come up with different ice creams all the time. And the one right now, and then people enjoy that. So like
I mean, Troy's like a groupie.
Yeah, we have them.
He's like a hardcore. I can't go anywhere else but there. I'm like, okay.
And I would just say that, having a high quality ice cream is a necessary but not sufficient thing, right? To having a place that people really enjoy. Because really what, I kind of like to say that you're making and remembering memories.
Yeah, for sure.
So like yesterday or the day before, a grandfather came in with his granddaughter. Who was like 3 or 4 years old, and when you do that, when you go later in life to a place like an ice cream parlor, right? I mean, it's a special bond. It's a special moment when a grandparent gets an ice cream cone for the grandchild,
sure.
and there you hand this 4-year-old girl big cone of ice cream with lots of rainbow, colorful sprinkles, and her eyes pop up.
Yeah, for sure.
Pop out. You do the same thing to someone who's 60 years old, and their eyes pop out in the very same way.
Yeah.
And there's just a sort of...
so beautiful.
And it just sort of touches that. I used to call it Rosebud. It was like a Rosebud moment.
Yeah.
Remember Rosebud from Citizen Kane?
Yes.
And that time in childhood when life was just about possibility and your connections to your parents, your friends, your little league team when you won or lost a game. And so ice cream is definitely an emotional product in an ice cream shop. A lot of times people will say, I think your ice cream from the pints in the grocery store is not the same as what you serve here. And I can assure you it is the same, but
they missed the pop. They missed the Rosebud moment.
There isn't the experience, that nostalgic moment of that you're not conscious of. And So
that's so important to marketing, just as a marketeer myself. It's like now we need a QR code that transports people from your pint of ice cream over to a gallery of photos and music so they can feel like they're at the shop with their loved ones. I mean, yeah, I was going to ask you, my next question was, how did you get the distribution going and why?
Well,
because you are on a very successful street in a very good location.
Yeah. There's a difference between the scoop shop and the distribution business. And they're like
for sure.
two completely different businesses. And my advice to anyone who tells you, oh, you've got such a wonderful tomato sauce, you should, put that in a can or a jar and sell it, is probably don't.
You mean, is this a bit of a headache for you?
Yeah, so it's something I inherited when I got involved.
Okay.
And a lot of investment was put into trying to make, a good quality ice cream, something available in freezers and in grocery stores and stuff like that. It's a completely different business.
Oh, for sure.
And it's a very challenging one. And I've sort of learned the hard way how hard it is, because the initial efforts to make it work were not successful. And so I got involved and was going to try again. And, what I learned was it's very hard. It's very costly. Getting shelf space is hard, but that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is getting people to sort of go past the Ben & Jerry's, pints of Ben & Jerry's and Haagen-Dazs to go with a brand that they've never heard of. And so that requires lots of money, and that also requires, you often have to pay for your shelf space.
Oh, I know.
And
I worked for a firm called Interact long before the user card came out, where they scan and they know your purchase history. And the monopoly there in the grocery store, buying shelf space, it's tough.
Yeah, it's very
and it's tough to keep it once you get it.
Yeah, because and the other thing is, like, when you go down the frozen the frozen aisle, that you're seeing like 50 or 60 or 80 different brands, and you're thinking, wow, what a lot of different ice cream companies. Well, really, it's two ice cream companies.
Who is it?
Unilever and Nestle, right? And they own a whole sequence of brands.
Right. So,
for example, Ben & Jerry's is not owned by Ben & Jerry. It's owned by Unilever. Haagen-Dazs is owned by Nestle. So I think it's Nestle. And they basically control those aisles.
Right.
And the grocery stores recognize that there's a market for smaller producers, regional brands, and
local, handmade, small batch.
Exactly. But it's a nuisance for them to have to deal with these sort of one at a time, hand to mouth kinds of companies. And so it's also very competitive among the smaller brands to get into those freezers. So it's just very hard, and you have to keep it cold, you have to keep it frozen, and the margin is very low.
Yeah, they get you on the margin. I remember pennies on a dollar. I mean, I often left that position thinking, why would anyone want to be in the grocery store business? It's pennies on a dollar, and you're moving stuff. Well, so that is part of your brand, though.
Right,
that's
exactly,
most impressive, because from a selfish point of view, I love to see it in Fairfield so I can have it.
Yeah. Where is it available in Fairfield?
It was at the Pantry, which is somewhat like a mini version of the Guido's here.
Okay.
Very organic meats, seafood, fresh pantry, and so on. And they had your smaller cups, but we were, it's 70 miles away.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do have because Great Barrington is a second home community, we do have a small constituency in, Southern Connecticut and New York City, but the distributors, it's not a big name brand.
So what are your goals with it? Like, I saw you in the shop. You look so relaxed and fabulous, and your coffee was fabulous, by the way, or espresso.
Number 6 Depot.
Number 60. Okay, maybe they're going to be a sponsor for Mavs Coffee Clarity one day. But anyways, What?
You should talk to them.
I should-
Flavio. You should talk to Flavio and Lisa.
Yeah, well, we'll have to let them hear this
They're in West
episode.
Stockbridge.
Maybe
They're in West
they'll
Stockbridge.
maybe they'll think about it. But anyways, so what's happening now? I mean, I know what it takes to start and run businesses. You're very busy. You've got kids. So where are we taking this fabulous thing that you've built?
Oh, well, I am at a point in my life where I'm enjoying the store.
Okay. Yeah.
And the pints and the food service is an add-on to us to help pay for the overhead costs of having our own sort of production facility. And so it's you can spend a lot of money and not get it very far in the grocery business. So I'm just sort of going with the low-hanging fruit these days, which is the stuff where people are already familiar with us, where I don't have to push to get in and then have to spend a lot of money to stay in.
Right.
And so I'm just sort of like much more interested in the scooping, the ice cream parlor element of the business.
The memory making.
Yeah. And I, we had customers come in yesterday who there was two grandparents, a son, and then the wife and two children. And the wife was Vietnamese, and the two children were their children. And one of the grandparents said their dog in Vietnam is named Soko.
Ah.
And that was, they spend their summers with their grandparents. And it is something that is important. You know, they get a lot of joy from coming to Soko. And I like that element of the business. I also, from a business perspective, I like the fact that someone buys an ice cream, they pay me $5.50, and I have it right then and there. I don't have to wait 6 weeks and send invoices after invoice to get it. I don't have to. The upfront cost is much less. Upfront expense is much less. So I like that business much more. It's you have to work hard. It's a very, ice cream is a wonderful product. It also happens to be filthy. It's dripping dairy and sugar, and you just always have to be on it. I like working with young people. I like their energy and their enthusiasm. For a lot of them, working for me is their first job. I kind of honor that role that I play with them as their first boss, and really want them to understand, what it is to be a hardworking, interested person. And I feel like that's like a contribution.
For sure.
Yeah, I still remember my first boss.
Oh, me too. Mine was Miss Ruby in West Stockbridge.
So tell me about that. What did you learn from her?
Oh, well, first of all, I love the fact, and had never experienced a menu that changed every week. She was vivacious, tenacious, and she was no one to mess around with. Her creativity just rocked every minute. She was also very compassionate. She gave you a long leash. I, like you, have students that work with me from local universities. I'm often people's first-time job, in marketing and business development. And like I told you earlier, my grandmother said you cannot be a success until you help others. So I love sharing my crazy creativity. I also love sharing my business acumen. I think it's really important. Our kids are not taught business in school. They're hardly taught penmanship, which is another story for another day. They're not taught anything. Ava's graduating, and I'm glad, and I hope that she'll listen to this. Like, start your life with someone that really cares about helping you. Like, when we have interns, we'll find out a way to compensate them. It's not just you're coming in to answer the phone and be a drone and do filing. No, we take your life really seriously. Yeah. And because you're a part of society and you're contributing to society. And so many people nowadays, I find, have really hits in their self-esteem. Especially, I don't want to be gender specific, but ladies, women, they're afraid to ask for the money, send an invoice, collect a deposit. I do very high-level sales coaching, and there's some very high-level sales women that still shrink back. I'm not supposed to do that. And that comes from early on training. Never mind at the home. I'm talking about early on bosses. So in the same way my grandmother mentored me, of course there's limitations in every gender, every culture, every religion, everything you could find a limitation. And when Juanita James was on my show when I was on Hand Network, she was the first woman educated at Princeton in 1974, a black woman. And she said, Denise, I know that I have limitations. I don't let them define me. I go around them. And that's also another principle I use. Like, I'm not going to let the fact that I'm only 5 feet tall and woman and blah, 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 blah define me. I teach whomever's in my workspace how to go around them. Like, I'm not looking at the negative. I'm looking at where we can go. And that's how I roll. That's the reason for this show. I hope that anybody, as we come to a conclusion here, and I've had really fun time with you asking me a lot of questions because I'm usually the person asking the questions. What do we want the takeaway for the audience to be? Like, you're living your life, whether you're starting a career right now in your 50s or you're just getting out of school. What do we want them to know from you, Erik? What's your life hack? What's your business intel?
Well, it's not business intel, it's personal intel.
Okay, what's your personal intel?
Basically, you have to believe in yourself and try not to let what everyone tells you is important define what's important to you. Trust your own self. The boundaries of possibility can always be moved outward, and don't let other people push them in.
The boundaries of possibility can always move outward. Wow, there's no chance coincident you and I met up. Thank you so much, my new friend, ERIK BRUUN from SoCo Creamery. Where can we find you? What's the website?
SoCoCreamery.com, SoCoCreamery.com.
And listen, if you're in the Berkshires, you go right over to Railroad Street and tell them that Denise or AK Mavs Coffee Clarity sent you. Thank you, my friends. You've been on Mavs Coffee Clarity with Denise, and we have spilt the beans. Okay, it's a hashtag move forward kind of a day. Thank you, Erik.
You're welcome. Thank you.